Hi, welcome to Skye Sweaty Record Review, episode 17-ish, I don't know. Today I'm going to be reviewing a record called Immigrant by an artist called Belly. Now, I was really excited about this. I had listened to Belly's last album, I think it was called Mumble Rap, a couple times back in the old days when I'd be on the elliptical and I wouldn't talk about it on YouTube. And I liked it. I thought it was really interesting. I could tell, he had a lot of Arabic speaking in it and even a little bit of French speaking. I did a little bit of research back then. He's a Canadian whose family comes from Jordan and Palestine. So I thought, well, that's a pretty interesting angle to come at. And so when the album was called Immigrant and the cover features probably a picture of him when he's a kid, like in school, I thought, okay, well, this might be really interesting. This might be a great Canadian record about what it's like to be an immigrant into Canada. Matched with this is the fact that over the weekend, as I said in the last episode, I took my students to Montreal. And the whole time I'm explaining the divide between the French-speaking populace and the English-speaking populace and the oppression and all that. And then I mentioned how, well, of course, the native population doesn't care about that debate at all because they were murdered by both sides. And then I realized I didn't actually talk much about immigration to Canada until I saw up on this telephone pole this horrible sticker, this really racist right-wing sticker. And whenever I see a really racist right-wing sticker, I pull it off. So here it is. And it says here, "Stopper l'immigration massive." So that means, hopefully you can figure that out, stop massive immigration, with these ominous boots stepping over the flag of Quebec. So, thankful. As horrible as this was, I was thankful that gave me a chance to talk to my students about the state of immigration in Canada and about how a lot of the debates that are had in Europe about immigration, which are different than those that we have in America, are echoed in Canada. So that was a whole great discussion. So here I am with the album Immigrant by Belly. And I immediately switched to the fourth track, which is called Immigrant. And I listened to it and I am blown away. Absolute Skye stamp all the way through. One of the greatest songs I've heard this year. It's a song about the immigrant experience. It's very angry. It's actually transnational, so it features Meek Mill, who I'd never heard before, but has some really good verses. It features who's American. It features Belly, who's Canadian. And then at the end, it has Mia? I don't know. Mia, who expresses the difficulty of being an immigrant in England. So it has all these things together, and it's not too preachy, and a lot of it's real life. Amazing verses, very current, very political. So if you're a big fan of Trump and his policies, you'll probably find this pretty objectionable. But my favorite line is from the chorus, which is, "When freedom comes, you better lock your door," which I think is great, showing this kind of hesitation and ambiguity towards the concept of freedom as an immigrant in Western civilization. So I was extremely excited and happy, and there is a but coming. And then I listened to the first track on the album, and this is quite good as well. A little bit less interesting. It ends with the line, "Muslim boy had to wear a cross just across the border." So I thought, oh, okay, we're kind of keeping these things up here. And then I don't know what happens. The next track, the first verse is about being rich and about being with a girl who does a lot of cocaine. It's a lot about doing drugs and being rich. The production's kind of boring, it's kind of unremarkable, and that follows through the rest of the record. Even that great Immigrant song, the song Immigrant, not Led Zeppelin, the song Immigrant is followed up with some boring song about having Ducatis and Bugattis, which, by the way, rhyme. He would like you to know that Ducati and Bugatti rhyme. And I was so disappointed, because I think it's okay if you have a record that's partly kind of political and personal, and then is on the other half kind of your typical rap about, drugs and sex and all that stuff. But it's just not good enough. The production is really boring for most of the record. I think Immigrant is the only song with actually remarkable production. Maybe the last track is pretty good as well. The last track is called Street Cathedral, and the production's a little bit better. It makes reference to the character Nicky from Casino, the one played by Joe Pesci, which I think is pretty interesting pull, nice illusion. But in general, it's all kind of following the template of partially mournful debauchery. You know, like he's rapping about this life and he's sort of complaining about it. It's no coincidence that The Weeknd appears on a song. The Weeknd made his whole career off of singing songs about mournful debauchery. Like, oh, I have so much money and so much sex and do so much drugs. Why am I so sad? This is mostly the rap version of that. I think probably the most exemplary track, so the best track is Immigrant, and that's a great song, and that is the promise of Belly as a rapper. The most exemplary is the second track. I don't know if it's pronounced Zion, Xion. It's crass. It's about drug use and fame. But then there's some commentary on identity. You know, like if Aladdin was a rapper, that's what he calls himself. And it's interesting. It's not entirely boring. It's not like the song Maintain, which is, I think, exclusively about having a watch, which is pretty boring. So that's my review. Listen to, download, purchase the song Immigrant. It does everything that this album does right. I would say you could ignore the rest. Kind of a funny side note before I give my one-word comment, my three-word review. On Tidal, if you look up the artist, it says related artists to this Muslim Canadian rapper. Related artists are The Breeders and Lemonheads. So if you can do the math, they must have thought that this was the 90s girl group Belly. I actually think I like this better than I liked Belly in the 90s. Anyway, if I had to give a one-sentence review, and I do, because that's my show, I would say it is promising, yet disappointing. I think that's the most negative review I've given. As far as the trivia question of the day, the random CD that is on my table is The Best of Parliament. Pretty good album. I probably won't review this though, because I only review albums that come out this week. So with that in mind, check me out in a couple days, or tomorrow, I don't know, on Thursday, when I'll do my next review of some music. Not that.